Most power systems fall apart the moment that you ask one question. Who would actually win in a fight? This character or that character? What about this one? And that one? And that one? And that one?
Stop it. Get some help.
Power scaling. It is exhausting because sometimes it does make sense and other times it definitely doesn't. So I built a power system where that question actually has an answer, but I don't think it's the answer that any of you guys are expecting or are gonna like too much. But first, let me explain by starting from the beginning. No, not that far back. Okay, that should be good. I've always loved power systems. The epic fight scenes, the debates over who's stronger.
But where do you rank a guy like Lightning McQueen with 7 piston cups?
I would tell you he wouldn't be the GOAT. How are you going to be the GOAT? I mean, when you talk about Stripper King Weathers and Lightning McQueen, they're both tied with 7 piston cups. Strip Weathers, you've got about him?
Imagining myself in that power system if I had powers, the list goes on and on. But it's not just the powers or the magic or whatever it is that draws me in. It's the logic behind it all. For a little bit of context about me, I grew up on stuff like the X-Men where you constantly have Omega level mutants breaking reality. And then you get to My Hero Academia, where pro heroes have actual rankings and structure based on quantifiable metrics, notable feats, and most importantly, aura. But the more that I watched and studied these power systems, the more that I noticed a pattern. A lot of these systems, they just don't hold up under the microscope. The littlest bit of pressure can create plot holes and inconsistencies that can either make or break your story. So, when I started writing my superhero trilogy, The Prime Archives, I realized that I didn't just want a power system that had cool powers and flashy fight scenes, because all of that is just one piece of the puzzle. I wanted a system that felt personal, scalable, and consistent. So, in my world, power isn't just random, it's evolution. In my universe, powers are triggered by something called primonium. It's an extraterrestrial element that gives off a radiation that's toxic for us normal humans, but not primes, which are an evolved species of human that holds the prime marker within their DNA. If you want to learn more about the origin of primes, check out the video on screen. You can also head over to my Patreon and read the full lore file right now. When a prime is exposed to primonium, they don't get their powers immediately. In fact, something much worse has to happen first. They fall into a coma for days, sometimes weeks, and while they're unconscious, their body is adapting. It's trying to survive. I mean, their DNA is rewriting itself in real time. They're evolving. And when they wake up, they're not the same. They're no longer human. Not really. They're a prime now. But here's the part I love about this system the most. When you're a prime, your power isn't random. It's a complete and total reflection of you, your personality, your instincts, your physiology. But the more primonium radiation you're exposed to, the stronger you become, and the more unstable you get. Most primes only develop one ability. A few can develop 2 across different classes, but if you go beyond that, you become something else entirely. The people at Atlas Corp like to call them singularities. And singularities, they don't just break limits, they break the entire system. To keep things consistent, every prime is ranked, but not by a number like in My Hero Academia, but by tiers, kind of like curse grades in Jujutsu Kaisen. And tiers aren't assigned by hype or aura points or even reputation. They're ranked by the only thing that should matter in a fight: threat level. Tier 0 primes technically aren't even primes yet. They're still human because they haven't had their prime gene activated. But the moment they're exposed to primonium, they'll become a tier 1 prime. These are just your standard active prime. They might have gotten a baby dose of primonium radiation, maybe they grew a tail, or maybe they can now tell the difference between Coca-Cola and Pepsi with their eyes closed. But basically, Their abilities are typically not meant to be used in an offensive capacity, and they aren't deemed real threats by Atlas Corp. The real threats are the tier 2 primes, the enhanced. This is where stuff starts to get exciting if you do develop powers. Tier 2s make up the bulk of awakened primes. Their powers can be used in battle, but they're usually not the strongest combatants. It's the Delta Primes who are the real problems, the tier 3s. If you're in this category, you're definitely dangerous and you're definitely on Atlas Corp's list. These primes usually have some of the stronger abilities, but any classification can be a tier 3. It just depends on how strong they are, and we'll get to the different classes later. And last, but certainly not least, we've got the tier 4s, the anomalies. And these are definitely an issue. Anomalies are capable of large-scale devastation. They're city-level threats, sometimes even global level. And if it's a tier 4 singularity, good luck. But power isn't just about how much you have, it's about how it works and how you use it. Leviathan. You are the weapon. You're a tank, a bruiser, a vanguard for my Marvel rival fans. Leviathans are strong, durable. Sometimes they can even turn into something much bigger than themselves. But the bigger you are, the harder you fall. Emitter. You create the weapon. Energy blasts, constructs, element conjuring. Emitters project things from their own bodies. They're usually more suited to long-range combat, but they are still dangerous up close. And emitters are fairly common, like Leviathans, but that doesn't make them any less of a threat. Manipulator. You control the battlefield. If you're a Marvel Rivals fan, manipulators would usually fall into the strategist category. Powers such as manipulating electromagnetic fields like Magneto, controlling the earth and plants beneath our feet like Toph and Poison Ivy, and transforming one object into another like Adam Eve. While they won't punch you to death like a Leviathan, they've got their own tricks up their sleeves. And speaking of tricks, phasers break reality. They're usually your tricksters, the now you see me, now you don't types. Flyers, teleporters, people who can walk through walls. Phasers are typically movement based, but they're not always limited to that. Their powers are heavily linked to perception and distorting reality. Just like the Scions, you attack the mind. Telepaths and telekinetics, primes with enhanced senses like future sight or echolocation. While Scions have a more limited array of potential powers and usually aren't the most physical, they're some of the strongest as far as classifications go. You won't want to face off against a Scion who not only knows what they're doing, but what you're about to do. Singularity. You shouldn't exist. You might not even know the full capabilities of your powers yet. Think cosmic energy, time travel, reality warping. The possibilities are endless and unquantifiable, which makes you a threat, a pretty big one. Luckily, Atlas Corp hasn't come across any singularities yet, but they've definitely gotten close. Some classifications are more common than others, and some are extremely rare, but none of them are automatically stronger than the others. Well, besides singularities, if the classes were cards in a deck, singularities would be the jokers. But apart from them, one class does not trump the other, because in my universe, power is contextual. Power scaling is where most systems start to fail, because they assume stronger automatically means better. But in my system, a lower tier prime can beat a higher tier one. A Leviathan with super strength can fall to a Scion with telepathy. A phaser who can fly can fall to a manipulator who can change their gravitational pull. And a singularity can beat them all. I treat my fight scenes like the NBA playoffs. It doesn't matter where you finished in the regular season. Matchups matter. Skill matters. The way you use your power and how much control you have over it could be the difference between victory and defeat, life or death. For example, let's take Oscar, aka Fuego. He's one of my main characters in this entire series. He's a tier 3 emitter and Leviathan. His emitter ability allows him to conjure and project flames. His Leviathan status makes him immune to fire and smoke inhalation. Now, take Xiomara, Oscar's future adopted sister. She's a tier 4 emitter and manipulator. She can pretty much do everything Oscar can and more. Her manipulator status allows her to overheat atoms, making them spontaneously combust at will. But in the book that she gets introduced in, she's just a child with almost no mastery of her abilities. When Oscar finds her, he's been a prime for nearly a decade. They're both technically tier 4s, but Xiomara's powers should give her the edge, right? So, who would win in a fight? Well, it depends, and that's the point. Because while your power system should make sense and have rules and follow logic, it should also serve your story too. Now, I'm not saying go overboard with the plot armor, but sometimes it makes more narrative sense for the weaker character to overcome the stronger one. Power has a cost. It always has, and it always will. Or at least it should. In my world, the stronger that you are, the less stable you become, both physically and mentally. When you become a prime, your body changes, and so does your mind. Because evolution, it doesn't care about who you used to be. It cares about what you are, and if you have what it takes to survive. So yeah, I love mutants and superheroes and power systems. So I decided to make my own. And this is just the foundation. And if you want the full breakdown, every class, every rule, every little detail, it's all on my Patreon. By joining the Initiates tier, you can gain access to complete lore files, exclusive story draft snippets, and early access to these videos. And if you want to see this power system in action, my debut novel Red Skies is where everything comes to life. And if everything goes to plan, you should be able to read this story by the end of this year. So, like the video if you enjoyed hearing about my power system, leave a comment telling me what class and tier that you'd be a part of, and subscribe for more content like this. I've been LDJ, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.